Hello friends of the electrified charging fun and welcome to Speicher Elektrisiert, your channel all around Skoda's e-mobility and the Skoda ENYAQ. My name is Matthias, and when you've got such a car, just X-Works brand new, like this RS model I got a week ago, the first thing you want to do is drive and drive and drive. And exactly that's what we do today. We are going on a drive on my test drive route you already know from other videos where I tested my old ENYAQ with a software version 3 and the older motor at the rear. And on this video we look at consumption in spring summery conditions as of today. We look at the first insights and the first experiences when driving the new motor, the new car. And first, let's look at the configuration and setting of the car I do the test drive with. We've got the 21-inch wheels right here with the aero blades. I didn't dismount them. I kind of like the optics. And we've got a Pirelli Scorpion Elect SUV high-performance electric car tire in the front with 235/45 dimension. And in the rear, the bigger one with 255/40 dimension. Some more information on this route. We are starting quite early. It's 4 minutes past 8 in the morning and we've got 12 degrees outside temperature. I've charged the car to 80%, which leads to 386 kilometers of range. Here you can see it even bigger. And another important thing to know is we are doing this in drive mode or drive profile, to be exact, normal, like all other tests with my older ENYAQ to make it more comparable. And of course I drive in mode B like I did before, whilst trying to use as much travel assist as possible, because this is how I did all the other tests. And now let's use the OBD adapter to look inside the data of the car, and you see the battery is just 1 degree warmer than the outside temperature. And down here I'll take some stats from the battery. We can see the watt hours up here and the total accumulated discharge and charge down here. And below here, this data I'll take from the battery so we can see how much watt hours did we use on our test drive. And hopefully down here, since the accumulated charge includes the recuperation, we can see how much we recuperated on our drive. Because, as you all know, my test drive has some uphills and some downhills to test how good the state of charge estimation is when altitude comes into play. And I'm quite curious if I can see at the end how much energy I got back when driving downhill. And here is our route for today. And as you can see, this looks a bit odd. This is of course how you plan a route, because first I entered my first destination, which is Davos, then the second one, which is Thusis, and the last one, which is at home. And when you add them as an intermediate destination, it is planned like this, in the wrong order. But it is easy, and here the first tip or trick for those who do not know, it's the same as with the software version 3. You can quickly change the position of the intermediate goals by simply putting your finger longer on the entry and then just slide it where you want it. And now let's bring Thusis in the right location, and there we go. Now the route looks much better. By the way, if you want to delete an intermediate goal, just swipe to the left and you've got the paper bin to delete it. And if we now look at this, this looks much better, and this will be our test drive for today. Now let's have a look if the state of charge estimations here look good and to compare them when we reach our destination. First off, we've got Davos and it says 58%. Then we've got Thusis with 55% and we've got home with 44%. And if you look at the map, this looks quite odd, because between Davos and Thusis is one of the largest laps I want to drive. But you're going downhill from Davos to Thusis, whilst you're going uphill from Mels, where I am now, to Davos, which means 80% down to 58% to Davos seems really realistic, as well as the Davos Thusis with only 2% SoC. So it could be that the new software version 4 really takes altitude into account, and we do the proof right now. As you can see, I nilled all the values since the start of the drive, and we talk to each other again in Davos. I reached my first intermediate destination. It's 200 meters in front of me, but it's better to park here because in front there is no parking opportunity. And look at this, 58%, exactly as estimated by the car. Let's have a quick look at the driving data. As you can see, I drove 59 kilometers in 4 minutes because it's mainly country road and a lot of uphill, and I have a consumption of 27.6 kilowatt hours 100 kilometers. And now let's look at the car scanner data. You can see the battery is up 2 degrees Celsius to 15.5, whilst outside it is still 10.5 degrees. And here you can see we've got some recuperation of energy back in our battery. And if I look at this data, this is quite good. Didn't expect that. First off, hit on the spot when it comes to the SoC estimation. 58 estimated, 58 when I reached the destination. That is really impressive. And 27.6 kilowatt hours 100 kilometers is a rather good value, taking into account the fact that we drove a lot of uphill to reach Davos. And now let's do the comparison here with the ME3 ENYAQ, my ATX, and I'm pretty sure you see the difference. Now let's have a quick look at the estimations for the next intermediate destination and for the final destination. The car calculates them en route as well as when you reach an intermediate destination, and let's have a look. Now it says 57% instead of 55%, so we are 2% up for the next intermediate stop. And for reaching home, we are at 46%. So basically, again, 2% up. And to be honest, this is so close to the initial values. This is quite well. Also take into account we've got a bit of a difference between the German and the English version because I do them afterwards. So basically there is often 1% plus or minus. So yes, this is highly precise estimation, I would say. I'm now driving to my next intermediate destination, and let's see if it keeps this way. Driving again through the beautiful Swiss mountains as always. Got a question for you. I'm normally doing all the tests on the same test drive with the same settings to make them more comparable, even though they are highly subjective because I am driving and I'm not a perfect test driver, so there is some influence from my side. But are you interested in different settings like driving in mode D with the recuperation pedals, trying to do it different, or even some hypermiling on this course, trying to be as much efficient as possible? If you're interested in that, then write me in the comments and I'll see what videos I can do for you. And while we are already talking, I want to share some of my experiences with the car in the first week I've got. Well, and one thing that stood out is the new motor on the rear axle. Yes, the older one, the so-called APP 310, wasn't bad. It was a really good one, and you had quite a lot of fun with this. But the new one, the so-called APP 550, that's a whole different story. And you feel that much more torque of 240 Newton meters this new motor has. The RS is electric car as the media tells it should be when it comes to acceleration. Do you need it? No, not really. I loved my ATX. But if I compare ATX to the RS, this is a whole different story. This has really power. And yeah, to be honest, I like that. And the first stats I've got for consumption, it seems that the motor definitely is more efficient, even though it has more power. I mean, I had the ATX with 195 kilowatts of power, and now I've got 250 kilowatts of maximum power. And this is cool, this is really cool. And it seems that the car itself is a bit quieter inside. I'm not sure about this, subjective again. One thing maybe to talking about the steering wheel and the recognition if you've got your hands on it or not. It seems to be more sensitive. I have way more messages telling me putting the hands on the steering wheel, but for me this is not a problem because normally I have both hands on the steering wheel. Talking about software, we do a lot of separate videos on this. The software really is great. So fast, so smooth, no errors. But the thing I like the most is the new head-up display. Because with the new head-up display, you've got so many information, very well visualized. I really love that. This is something which really improves driving every day. And basically, yes, this new model year is an awesome upgrade or update of the old models. That is for sure. And talking about that, we are talking about a technical facelift. This is not a visual facelift because despite the Skoda text, it looks the same. But the technical improvements under the hood are really standing out. I have reached the second intermediate destination, Thusis, and basically I'm at 58% SoC. So I've started in Davos with 58% and I reached Thusis with 58% due to the enormous recuperation on the road down from Davos to Thusis. And if we look at driving data right now, you see I drove 103 kilometers with 57 kilometers an hour and with an average consumption of 16.3 kilowatt hours 100 kilometers, which is basically because I drove a bit slower. I had a transporter in front of me, but nonetheless, this is an astonishing good value, especially if we look at the next data. The battery is now at 16 degrees Celsius. Outside it's still very and outside we still got 15 degrees, so a typical spring situation when it comes to temperature. And look at the accumulated charge. There you can see how much we drove downhill. And now it's time to go home. And let's see what the estimation for getting home is right now. It's 47%. And now we drive a lot of highway back. And yeah, let's see what will be when we are back in Mels. And before you now say, you're hyping the ENYAQ, you're only telling me this is the new bright shiny star on the EV sky. No, I don't. Of course, there is not everything gold that shimmers in phoenix, orange and bronze on this car. There are issues, there are flaws, and I already found some in the first week. Let me give you an example. When I set a charging limit, the ENYAQ always exceeded it. My ENYAQ, when I set it to 80%, will always charge to 83% and sometimes even to 100%. And this issue is already known by some of my viewers, and they already wrote me an email, and I'm already talking to Skoda about that. And there are even more issues and flaws, but to be honest, if you get a shiny new car, would you only talk about negative stuff? Of course not. Of course you're happy with it. Of course you are a bit hyped. And of course you tell the world if you've got a YouTube channel. And please be assured, there will be videos where I move over to the shadow of the car, as well as another and even more videos about the light of the car, because in every car, in every single thing, there is light and there is shadow. And I would say this channel is known for pointing out both sides, for showing both sides. And just to be honest, what would you think if the first video of my new car would be a negative one, with issues, with flaws, with problems? You would only write in the comments, you're only focusing on the bad stuff. This is boring, the car is so good. And that's why I'm not doing this in the first video. I'm going over the whole course of this car, and I think this is what the channel is all about, and this is why this channel is loved by so many people, and this is what brings the authenticity to this channel. I'm back from the route. You see, I'm back at home, and look at here, look at this, 47% estimated. And here you have the data of the drive. It was 157 kilometers. It was with an average speed of 63 kilometers an hour, and look at the consumption, 15.6 kilowatt hours 100 kilometers. Let's have a quick look at battery temperature. It's now 17 degrees Celsius, whilst outside it's already over 18 degrees. It's not what I wanted for this test. 5 degrees lower would be better, but hey, you can't have always the weather you want. And look down here, we have quite nice values when it comes to the content of the battery and the recuperation. And now let's look at the data in detail. So these values are quite astonishing. 15.6 kilowatt hours 100 kilometers is a really good value, especially for spring conditions. And now let's do the comparison here with the software version 3 ENYAQ, my ATX. And don't forget, this ENYAQ has less power than my new one. And as you can see, looking at the final data here in mils, we are talking about 15.6 kilowatt hours 100 kilometers versus 19.7 under spring conditions with the old ENYAQ. That's a whopping 4.1 kilowatt hours 100 kilometers less with a more powerful engine, a more powerful car. This is awesome. And it even beats the summer value of 15.8 kilowatt hours 100 kilometers the old ENYAQ did. Now let's move on to the other car scanner data. I said I show you and I will calculate some values with them. And let's first look at the energy content of the traction battery. Well, we started out with 62.35 kilowatt hours left in the battery, and when we were back at mils, it were 36,900 watt hours or 36.9 kilowatt hours. The difference is 25.45 kilowatt hours, which was used for driving. And if you do the math with that, you don't get exactly 15.6 kilowatt hours 100 kilometers, but these values, I don't know if they are pretty exact, and please be reminded, there are certain influences like temperature and stuff on the battery where these values can quickly differ on a couple of 100 watt hours. But it's still very close. More interesting, I find the total charge and discharge value, because this shows again the efficiency of recuperation. Well, doing the math there, I had a total discharge of 33.13 kilowatt hours over the complete course, and I recuperated 8.25 kilowatt hours. And this shows again how important it is to use recuperation in an electric car. Thankfully, the ENYAQ does always recuperate. And if you do the math here, you come to the conclusion that you're a bit lower than the other value of the energy content of the traction battery, because here it's 24.88. But again, a couple of 100 watt hours are failure to measure or to some conditions and stuff like that, so don't be irritated if it's not exact. This is a really great result for the model year 2024, and I really enjoyed this test drive a lot, and I hope you did so too whilst watching. And if it is like this, that you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a subscription, and then we see each other in the next video. And until then, stay full of energy.